Samantha thought she'd found her soulmate on a dating app. Someone who knew exactly what to say, shared all her interests, and seemed to understand her perfectly. After 6 months of the most romantic relationship of her life, she discovered her perfect match was actually her neighbor who had been watching her for years. But what Samantha learned about how her stalker had been collecting information about her daily routines, preferences, and vulnerabilities to create the illusion of compatibility revealed how predators use surveillance to manufacture the perfect romantic connection. Samantha Chin was 27, a graphic designer living in a converted loft apartment in Portland. She'd moved there 2 years ago for work, leaving behind a long-term relationship that had grown stale and a social circle that felt limiting. Portland was supposed to be her fresh start. New city, new career, new opportunities. But dating as a transplant in your late 20s proved harder than she'd expected. Her apartment was perfect. Second floor of a converted warehouse, huge windows, exposed brick walls, and reasonable rent. The building had only 6 units, quiet neighbors, and a coffee shop downstairs. It felt safe and inspiring. Samantha had tried dating apps before with mixed results. Too many guys who just wanted hookups. Too many conversations that died after a few exchanges. Too many first dates that felt like job interviews. But in March, she decided to give Bumble one more try. She'd updated her photos, rewritten her bio to be more authentic, and promised herself she'd actually put in effort this time. "I'm done settling for mediocre," she told her best friend Maya during their weekly FaceTime call. "I want someone who really gets me, you know? Someone who shares my interests, understands my humor, appreciates the same things I do." Maya laughed. Good luck finding your male clone on a dating app. But 3 days later, Samantha matched with someone who seemed exactly that. His name was Jake Mitchell. 29 years old, freelance photographer, lived downtown Portland. His photos showed a ruggedly handsome guy with kind eyes, taking pictures at art galleries, hiking trails, and coffee shops that looked familiar. But it was their conversation that hooked Samantha completely. "Jake, I saw you're into vintage film cameras. That's rare these days. Do you develop your own film?" Samantha was shocked. Her bio mentioned photography, but she hadn't specified vintage cameras. She'd posted one photo of herself holding her grandfather's old Nikon, but most guys didn't notice details like that. "Samantha, actually, yes, there's something magical about the darkroom process." "How did you know I was into film specifically?" "Jake, lucky guess. You have that aesthetic in your photos. Very deliberate composition. Plus, anyone who appreciates real photography probably started with film." Their conversation flowed effortlessly. Jake loved the same obscure indie bands Samantha discovered on Spotify. He recommended a Thai restaurant she'd been wanting to try. He even mentioned loving rainy Sunday mornings with coffee and vinyl records, exactly how Samantha spent most weekends. Within a week, they were texting constantly. Jake seemed to always know the right thing to say. When Samantha had a stressful day at work, he'd text encouragement. When she posted about trying a new hiking trail, he'd share a similar experience. When she mentioned craving her grandmother's soup recipe, he shared that he missed his own grandmother's cooking too. "This guy is unreal," Samantha told Maya. "It's like he was designed specifically for me. He gets all my references, likes all my favorite things, and actually listens when I talk." Maya was skeptical. "Doesn't that seem a little convenient? Like, what are the odds you'd find someone so perfectly compatible?" "Maybe I'm just finally ready for the right person," Samantha replied. "Maybe the universe is telling me something." For 2 months, Jake and Samantha texted every day, talked on the phone twice a week, and shared increasingly intimate details about their lives. Jake always seemed available when Samantha needed to vent. He remembered every story she told. He even sent her flowers after a particularly hard week at work, to her office address, which she didn't remember giving him. "How did you know where I worked?" she asked when she called to thank him. "You mentioned the building name when you talked about that difficult client meeting," Jake said smoothly. "I looked up the address to surprise you." Samantha was touched by the thoughtfulness, not suspicious of the investigation. After 3 months of perfect digital romance, Jake suggested they finally meet in person. Samantha was nervous but excited. She'd fallen for someone she'd never seen face to face, someone who felt more emotionally intimate than anyone she'd ever dated. They planned to meet at Powell's Books downtown. Neutral, public, perfect for 2 book lovers. Samantha spent an hour getting ready, choosing an outfit that made her feel confident but not overdressed. She arrived at Powell's 15 minutes early, browsing the photography section while watching for Jake. She'd memorized his photos, knew exactly what to look for. At exactly 2 p.m., someone approached from behind. "Samantha." She turned around and her blood went cold. It wasn't Jake from the photos. It was Mike, her upstairs neighbor Mike. Mike, who always seemed to be checking his mail when she came home from work. Mike, who asked about her weekend plans while they waited for the elevator. Mike, who somehow knew she'd been sick last month and left soup outside her door. Mike, who she'd always thought was just being neighborly. "Surprise," Mike said with a smile that now looked predatory instead of friendly. "I think we have a lot to talk about." Samantha's mind raced. How was Mike here? Where was Jake? Was this some kind of coincidence? But as she looked at Mike's face, really looked at it, she could see Jake's features underneath. The same eyes from the photos, just without the beard. The same smile, just without the confidence she'd fallen for digitally. "You're Jake," she whispered, the realization hitting like a physical blow. "I'm Mike. I've always been Mike." Jake was the creative interpretation. Samantha felt sick. The perfect relationship, the soulmate connection, the man who understood her better than anyone. It was all fake, built on lies, manipulation, and surveillance. "How long have you been watching me?" she asked, her voice shaking. Mike looked almost hurt by the question. "I haven't been watching you. I've been getting to know you. There's a difference." But there wasn't a difference, and as Mike explained his process, Samantha realized the extent of his deception. He'd been observing her since she moved into the building, learning her schedule by listening through the thin walls, following her to her favorite coffee shop to overhear her phone calls, taking note of her mail to learn about her interests, even following her on weekend outings to see what she enjoyed. "I knew you were special the day you moved in," Mike explained as they stood in the bookstore, Samantha too shocked to leave. "But you seemed so focused on work, so independent. I knew you wouldn't give a guy like me a chance if I just asked you out in the hallway. So you created a fake person to trick me? I created the version of myself that you would love. Jake isn't fake, he's who I am when I'm talking to you." All those conversations, all those feelings, they were real. But Samantha was realizing that nothing had been real. Every coincidental shared interest was based on Mike's observations. Every perfectly timed text was based on his knowledge of her schedule. Every thoughtful gesture was based on surveillance, not intuition. "The flowers to my office. How did you really know where I worked?" Mike looked uncomfortable. I may have followed you a few times, just to learn more about your life. You stalked me. I researched you. Like any good relationship requires research. Good relationships require honesty, Mike. What you did was stalking. What you're doing right now is harassment. Mike's demeanor shifted. The fake Jake persona was cracking, revealing something darker underneath. "You love Jake. You told me you'd never felt so understood by anyone. You said I was perfect for you. Jake doesn't exist. You created a fantasy based on violating my privacy." "Samantha, let me tell you something, baby girl. What Mike did to you isn't love. It's hunting. He studied you like prey, learned your patterns like a predator, and crafted the perfect trap disguised as romance. This man didn't fall in love with you. He fell in love with the idea of controlling you. He wanted to be the puppet master of your emotions, pulling strings based on information he stole through surveillance. Here's what I need you to understand. Real compatibility doesn't require stalking. Real love doesn't require deception. When someone seems too perfect, too understanding, too coincidentally aligned with your interests, that's not the universe bringing you your soulmate. That's someone who's been watching you long enough to manufacture compatibility. Mike violated your privacy for months before he ever swiped right on your profile. He turned your home into a surveillance site, your routines into research data, and your vulnerability into his advantage. But Samantha, you know what you did right. You trusted your instincts when something felt off. When Maya questioned the coincidences, when the flowers seemed too thoughtful, when details didn't add up, your gut was telling you something wasn't right. Now you've got some serious safety concerns to address. Mike knows your schedule, your address, your workplace, and your vulnerabilities. He's shown he's willing to deceive and stalk to get what he wants. You need to protect yourself like your life depends on it, because it might. Document everything. Save those messages. Report this to the police and your building management. Consider a restraining order. Change your routines. Mike's fantasy relationship is over, but his obsession might not be. And listen, this experience doesn't mean online dating is hopeless or that you can't trust your instincts about people. It means predators have adapted to use technology for manipulation. The solution isn't to stop dating, it's to date smarter. Real connection builds gradually through honest conversation, not through someone who seems to read your mind. Healthy relationships have some awkward moments, some differences, some surprises. When everything feels perfectly scripted, question who wrote the script. Samantha didn't go home that night. She stayed with Maya while processing what had happened and planning her next steps. The police took her report seriously, especially when she showed them 6 months of messages that demonstrated Mike's deceptive behavior. The building management moved her to a different unit immediately. She changed her work schedule and her regular routines. But Samantha also did something else. She started documenting her experience and researching digital stalking tactics. She discovered that what happened to her wasn't unique. Predators regularly use social media, dating apps, and proximity access to gather information about targets, then use that intelligence to manufacture connections. Samantha created a blog called Fake Perfect, where she shared warning signs of digital predators and taught people how to verify the authenticity of online connections. She developed safety protocols for online dating and offered consultation for people who suspected they were being digitally stalked. I thought Jake was too good to be true because he was. Samantha reflects a year later. But the lesson isn't to be more cynical about love. It's to be more informed about manipulation. Samantha eventually started dating again, but with better boundaries and awareness. She now lives in a different neighborhood, works with building security, and has protocols for meeting online connections. The scariest part wasn't realizing Jake was fake, she says. It was realizing how easily I accepted that someone could know me that perfectly without really knowing me at all. Mike was convicted of stalking and harassment. He served 6 months in jail and has a permanent restraining order preventing contact with Samantha. The lesson: when someone seems to understand you perfectly from the beginning, ask yourself how they learn so much about you so quickly. Real intimacy develops over time through honest conversation, not through surveillance disguised as romance.